So now we will start, and then you have 15 minutes, to, deliver your message to a lot of, audiences on the online and offline at the same time.
The first one, what are the underlying causes of defection? This is based on my previous two work back in 2015. 20 years evolution of North Korean migration for Asia Pacific policy studies, and more sort of broader theoretical framework to explain North Korean migration was published as a redefining human security for vulnerable migrants, including asylum seekers, people smuggling, and unlawful non-citizens in migration studies. So I use human security as a theoretical framework to explain why North Koreans moving out of North Korea, staying in China and through Southeast Asia and South Korea, and they don't stop there, as we know, what we call a 탈남 현상. The North Koreans, even after they settle in South Korea, they constantly look for better opportunity, a more safer place outside the Korean Peninsula that led to their secondary asylum, for example, in the UK, Western Europe, or North America and Scandinavian countries. And I'm using human security concept from the UNDP, United Nations Development Program. In 1994, UNDP has established the 7 pillars of human security. In explaining human development, it was mainly from the developmental studies, but I used this concept of human security as a securitization of human rights. So it's basically the same concept, but this has been the major motivation and the factor, more sort of a direct but complex factor for North Korean migration from North Korea and to South Korea primarily, and then from there onward migration outside the Korean Peninsula. So let me just briefly explain these 7 pillars of human security. First, personal security. It is something about the life, right to life, personal security, safe home, safe family. The second pillar is community security. So when the entire community, for example, in this case, North Korean ethnicity, the race, the entire group is under threat, then they will seek a safer place for the entire of the community to move for more safer place, community security. Political security is when you are threatened, under threat by based on your political belief. It can include religion or other political belief or religious thoughts. So when political security was in danger, then the migrant would think about to move to a safer location. That's basically the logic of using human security in migration studies. And fourth, economic security means safe job, stable income, or better income, or something to get by, basic sustainability, sustenance. And food security is right to food. When there is not enough food to survive, then migrants, not just the humans but animals, they move for more abundant areas where they can get enough food. Health security, environmental security, they're all sort of food, health, and environmental securities are all sort of interrelated. When there is a flood, for example, there is a food shortage and there is a health risk. So I use these 7 pillars of human security as a multiple or conjoined factor for North Korean migration. For example, as you can see, I just made a very brief graph. When the security is in danger, it's red. And when it's sort of a medium security conditions, then it's yellow, and then it turns to blue when it's considered safe. So North Korean migrants have been moving from the DPRK to China, and still while staying in China, they'll probably have a better or safer personal, community, political security. They still have economic insecurity and food insecurity, environmental insecurity while staying in China because of their vulnerable legal status while staying in China as unlawful non-citizen. But then they seek for a migratory route through Southeast Asia in ROK. So when they settle as an ROK citizens after 6 months of the interrogation and the Hanawan settlement program, their food, health, and environmental security, together with the personal security, might be safe, but still they have a community insecurity because of their origin as North Koreans. And they often told me, the North Korean defectors living in South Korea often told me that they couldn't really stand the second-class citizen treatment by the fellow South Koreans. So that can be considered as a community insecurity because of their country of origin or the birthplace being North Korean. Political and economic security is also not completely safe for North Korean migrants stay in ROK. That's why they're looking for better opportunity, more safer, more stable environment for them to stay and for their next generation. A lot of North Korean parents are moving overseas for their children's education, for example. That could be considered as a better personal security. So these are the reasons why there is a domestic and international defection, or what I call international and inter-Korean migration of North Korean defectors. I'll now move on to the second question. What are the unique experience and challenges faced by North Korean defectors? I'm also using my previous two work to explain the experience and challenge, the unique challenge faced by North Koreans. First one is I used these anecdotes and the accounts from North Korean migrants from the field in China, South Korea, and the UK, and now in Australia. So I address some of those unique challenges that North Koreans have compared to other migrants or refugees living in those countries outside the Korean Peninsula. And I particularly focus on those North Korean secondary migrants in the UK based on my own field experience. So what are the unique? They're actually, in broader terms and trends, North Korean migrants or refugees are not that different from other migrants or refugees. They're broadly under the same kind of, behavioral, the trends are very similar within migration. But what's particular about the North Korean secondary asylum or migrant case is these details, or the actors or the countries of destination are varied within the migration communities. This is just to illustrate one point. This is the statistic of North Korean asylum applications in the UK and Canada between 2000 and 2015. As you can see, the blue line is the number of asylum, the refugee applications in the UK. So there is a big hike between 2006 and 9. Then the number has completely dropped from 2009. But when the number was down in the UK, the number went up very exponentially in Canada. So what it means in migration studies, we call it push down and pop-up effect. So when one country, in this case, the UK, push down or reject the number of asylum application by North Koreans, then these migrants or the migrant agents who are facilitating this movement, they move the country from one to another, in this case, to Canada. So as you can see, it's very typical that when the number was down, the number in Canada just went up. So these people are moving around. It's on the one hand, it's the agency of the North Korean migrants themselves, but what what it says is that there is always this agent, the facilitators, the mediators who are helping and facilitating the movement of North Korean migrants. So there was quite interesting and noticeable statistical trend there. And the second thing I want to highlight in this lecture is the networks of North Korean defectors. It looks very complicated, but I just color-coded the networks of individuals and organizations of key North Korean defector activists. In this case, I'm just showing the case of Shin Dong-hyuk, but I've done on Kang Cheol-hwan, Park Yeon-mi, or Lee Hyun-suk for other works. So for example, here you see the yellow box or yellow nodes are individuals who are connected with Shin Dong-hyuk. And there is this orange box. They are governments, US government and South Korean governments. The green ones are non-governmental organizations, mainly human rights organization, non-governmental organization, human rights society internationally and in South Korea. What I found from the network is that, as I said, the agency of the individual North Korean defector activists, in this case, Shin Dong-hyuk, is important, but their boundaries, their activities are shaped by who Shin Dong-hyuk had been engaging with, right? So you need to look at how these individuals and organizations are actually shaping the discourses and the activities of these North Korean migrants. And in this case, I'm only talking about activists, but it's generalizable to all North Korean migrants who are living in South Korea and outside the Korean Peninsula. So you are interacting with other actors in the system, and because of their interests and their identities, their course of action living outside North Korea is also, changing. And you can see some of the characteristics or the nature of these organizations. They are mostly religiously Christian. Christian groups are helping these North Korean defectors. In the US, the Republicans are particularly focusing and helping and supporting politically and financially as well. When these North Korean defectors are giving public speeches, it's normally funded by the Republican money or the US State Department. In the case of UK, it's the Tory government, the Conservative government, or the Liberal MPs are helping and connecting and inviting these North Korean defectors. In South Korea, as we all know, mostly the Conservative Party, not the Progressive Democratic Party. It's the former that's been engaging and helping and shaping the discourse of North Korean defectors. And in terms of the sort of economic nature of these organizations who are helping North Korean defectors, they are economically libertarian. So it's a politically conservative, economically libertarian, and religiously Christian groups are helping and shaping the minds and identities and interests of these North Korean defectors. So this is something that we need to sort of, pay attention to, who are shaping, their life course of action. Post-migration. I haven't really followed up with other North Korean defectors yet. I'm sure there are other celebrity North Korean defector and activists these days. I think Park Yeon-mi sort of moved on. She's now living in the US and become an American citizen. And she found another sort of course of, a set of interests and identities were there. But this is something very interesting, the co-evolution of network and discourse, and that's shaping the defectors, and defectors' own agency also having an impact on their own network and discourse and resources living in their country of residence.
Well, my last question actually, before let you go, is there any similar cases, refugee cases, to be compared to North Korean refugee in modern times?
Yeah, I mean, any Cuban refugees living in sort of Miami, they're very similar. Any refugees from former communist or current socialist states, they have a similar sort of characteristic of being very, very anti-communist and anti-home country. The Cuban refugees living in Miami, they're very anti-Cuba. They're very anti-communist, very strong. They align with the Republican Party. So in that sense, North Korea is very similar. They're also similar to other refugees from on the former African dictator countries, and how they're also integrated into Western human rights, so-called the industry, using what I call the story grammar. So the African refugees, when they settle in Western countries, they use this story grammar, savage, victim, and savior grammar in their memoirs or their discourses. So the savage are the African dictators. In this case, if I apply that to North Korean defectors, they are the savage North Korean dictatorship, fat and ugly Kim Jong-un. So they are the victims, innocent victims of this savage dictator. But then there's also this sort of a savior, white savior, who rescue them from this evil. And the Western countries, or in this case, can be South Korean, they are the good, they are the sort of almost like a Christian savior of rescuing them from evil, very black and white. So that sort of story grammar is, equally applied in all North Korean memoirs published in the past 10 years. If you look at Shin Dong-hyuk's memoir, Escape from Camp 13, Park Yeon-mi, Lee Yeon-seo's memoirs, all using this same story grammar. Savage victim on the Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il, and they are the innocent. And they often choose this very sort of innocent-looking female North Korean refugees. Park Yeon-mi and Lee Yeon-seo are the typical case. And there's always this white savior who rescue them from, this detention center or, the lost homes in China and Southeast Asia. So very similar cases in the North Korean cases are very similar to those African refugees living in Western countries.
You mentioned about those, publicized, say, celebrity, North Korean refugees, probably more like in the United States or Canada or the UK. What other, I think positive roles and then negative roles in their, their home country? Home country means United States or UK or Canada, their own domestic politics, and say North Korean, community in general.
I mean, people help humanitarian, helping others out of their goodwill, but I found in these North Korean networks, people follow their own interests and their belief and identities. And what's really big in the US, UK, and also in Australia is the diversity and inclusion. It's a sort of big trend, sort of a normative trend that every public institution must have. So the diversity is having these refugees from North Korea, and especially from former, authoritarian and current authoritarian communist states, and including them in their public domain, community service as diversity and inclusion agenda. Then it's also helping the host countries setting up their sort of moral standards and playing that sort of higher moral authority compared to these backward Asian countries under dictatorship. So there is it's quite tricky how this diversity plays in Western countries, because it's them, it's the white people who are choosing who's fit for this diversity and inclusion as public image or identity. And if you're not fit for that diversity frame, then you will be permanently marginalized. But they have a tendency to pick this sort of innocent face who are very critical of their home countries, in this case, North Korea. So they would choose the pretty face, innocent face, who are very critical and anti-North Korea, anti-DPRK, anti-communist, because that serves their, higher moral authority in their home countries in the Western world.
Thank you so much. All right. I say excellent question, and then I was very, very intriguing, discussion.